No matter how well you've laid out that plan, no matter how much effort you put into it, it will not work if God is against it. That's why it says, in all thy ways acknowledge him. David was a great king. And what made David such a great king? Because the scripture said David was a man after God's own heart. David fought about 8 or 9 battles. And in every battle that David undertook, David was victorious. But the reason David was victorious in battle, because every time when David had to confront his enemy, he would go to the Lord and he would ask the Lord, Lord, what would you have me to do? Lord, would you have me to go up against this enemy? He would always consult the Lord and get God's advice and opinion as to whether he should go up against his enemy and how he should go up. And when he acknowledged God, the Lord would tell him, yes, go up. I'll be with you. I will fight for you. And one time he told him to go up against the Philistines. And David went up and he was victorious. And he smote the Philistine with a great slaughter. But then the Philistines decided to come back at him a second time. And David, once again, he sought the Lord and said to the Lord, shall I go up? And this time the Lord said, no, thou shalt not go up. He said, but howbeit, this time I'm going to fight for you. And God fought against the Philistines, and God wrought a great slaughter against them because God fought this second time for David. And this is what I'm telling you today. God will fight for you. He will make you victorious when you put things into his hand, when you trust him instead of just trusting in your own power and your own might. Now, the scripture said that David was a man after God's own heart. Now, David got in trouble a couple of times because David did what he wanted to do. He got in trouble when he decided he wanted Bathsheba. He took another man's wife, got her pregnant, then sent her back home. When he found out she was pregnant, he tried to get Uriah to sleep with his wife to cover up his sin. Well, when that didn't work, he sent Uriah to the hottest point of battle, that Uriah would die, and asked his men to bring back word to him when Uriah was dead. Well, when God took notice of it, he sent Nathan the prophet to David to tell him about what he'd done, about this man who had this one ewe lamb, and when strangers came in, this rich man decided he would offer up this poor man's lamb to his friend. And when David heard of this evil thing that this rich man had done, he said, this man shall die for what he's done. Well, then Nathan told him, he said, thou art the man, it's you. David had pronounced death upon himself. And that's what we will do many times. We will pronounce death upon ourselves. David got in trouble in that, but God delivered him from that. And then the second time, when he got in trouble once again, after all the many times that David won battles for the Lord, David got to feeling really good about himself and all the victories that he'd won for the people of God. He decided he would number his soldiers, and he started taking account of his strength and his might. And as he numbered his soldiers and all the men he had of war, he felt really good within himself. But then the Lord sent a prophet by to tell David, he said, in doing such, you have done foolishly before me. Because David decided to count his own strength. David decided to count his own might. And then the Lord told him, the prophet, to tell David, these 3 things shall come upon you. You shall have to deal with these 3 things. Either you'll have to flee before your enemy for 3 years, or you'll have to pestilence come upon you for 3 months. And 3 things that he told David would happen or could happen. And when David heard these 3 things, he said, I'm between 2 straits. He didn't know what to choose. But what David said, he said, I put myself at the mercies of God. And in so doing, God gave him the lesser of the 3 evils. And sometimes I think that's where we get that expression. We have to choose between the lesser of 2 evils. Well, David was given the choice between 3 things, and all 3 of them seemed very terrible to David. And David said, I find myself between 2 straits. He didn't say he was choosing between the lesser of the 3 evils. David chose neither. Actually, David said, I put myself at the mercies of God. And when God began to let the plague and things happen to the people started dying right and left. David cried unto the Lord, and he said, Lord, against thee only have I sinned. These sheep have done nothing. He said, let this sin be upon me and my house forever. He said, but Lord, let these sheep go free. And immediately God stopped the plague because David interceded on behalf of the people. And this is what I'm saying today. We need to have the heart and the mind of God, where we are trying to do the things that are pleasing in the sight of God.